right. Okay, so what I did is I took basically one question from an EA and went over and turned it into this exercise list. So we've got a small airport and we have a collection, right? So remember, a collection is a list, but it is a list where you can either determine if there's any members left and what the next member is. So every object in the collection has members, ID, place, due, expected, and arrived. So expected and arrived are blank at the beginning of the day because we won't actually know that information. All right. Hopefully expected and due will end up being the same thing. Same thing with arrived, but those will get filled in over the course of the day. A screen in the airport can display information on just 20 planes at a time, which are held in a linked list. So I'm asking you to describe the features of a linked list of 20 planes that have the above information. So you should probably talk about what the node is going to have in it. So what are the major components of a node? So data, right? A node has data. It also has, how about for a singly linked list? What else is going to be on that node? The address pointing to what? Absolutely. So the address pointing to the next node, great. You just need to make that a little bit more specific for this particular case, describing what the data would be for number one, and saying like what that next node would be. In order to understand what that next node would be, you need to understand why it's in the order that it is. So mention something about the sequence of this information. All right, all times are stored in the collection as the number of minutes since midnight. However, they are displayed on the screen 24-hour format. 1058 would be, that's really confusing. Okay, 1058 is stored in the collection as 658 because that's 658 minutes since midnight. That's not the way that typically they're done, but that's fine. I skipped over that part clearly when I was putting this together. If a plane arrived more than 30 minutes ago, it's removed from the linked list, and the next one in the collection is added to the end of the linked list. Okay, so it, again, arrived more than 30 minutes ago is something that you need to be able to check, and the next one is added once something is removed in order to make sure that there's always 20 planes on the linked list. So forming some kind of diagram, and remember, I showed you at one point that I wanted the diagram to have like boxes, right? One box for the data, one box for the link to the next address. Explain how a plane which arrived more than 30 minutes ago could be removed from the linked list. So where those pointers would go, keep in mind the head pointer, and keep in mind the pointer of the node of that plane that arrived more than 30 minutes ago. And number 3, for the application described above, compare the use of a linked list with the use of a queue. So we've gotten into detail about how to use that linked list. We haven't talked very much about queues, but is a queue first in, last out, or is a queue first in, first out? Do you remember? Excellent. So first in, first out, or FIFO. So the queue would make a lot of sense for this list of 20 planes where the one that arrives gets popped off. But it's entirely possible, because there could be a delay, that you could have, the due date, the due time is when it's expected to arrive, and it's in this order. And then what happens is it's delayed. And so this is not the next one you actually want to pop off the queue. The next one you want to pop off the queue is maybe the next one on the list is second or third on the queue. So you would have to find it in that queue. So I want you to talk about the cost of finding it in the queue versus removing an object from the linked list, removing a node from a linked list that is not necessarily at the head, versus removing something from a queue that's not necessarily at the front of the queue. That's essentially what this is talking about, that particular issue. Questions about the exercises? I know you will. Okay. I'm going to bring everyone back in so